Welcome to another deep dive. Today's mission is basically about throwing away those standard, bullet-pointed corporate AI manuals.
Oh, absolutely. Just toss them out.
Right. We are going to look at a highly practical, rigorously effective way to actually unlock the true potential of large language models. And we are doing it by examining this really fascinating source text we have today called Tech and Talismans, The Alchemy of Persona Prompting.
Which is such a great title, honestly.
It really is. So if you are listening to this, you probably use AI pretty regularly. You might even consider yourself like pretty good at writing prompts, to ask for professional tone or clear formatting, that sort of thing.
Like the standard best practice.
Yeah, exactly. But the source material we are looking at today argues that even those so-called good professional prompts are actually holding you back. They're keeping you from the kind of elite, high-level output these models are actually capable of producing.
Yeah, the text proposes a massive paradigm shift. It basically suggests that instead of writing these tedious, rule-heavy instructions, you need to learn how to draw a digital summoning circle.
Which sounds completely wild at first.
It does. But we are going to look at how framing your interactions as, like, ancient conjuration is actually much more than just a creative writing exercise. It fundamentally alters the mathematical behavior of the system.
Let's start with what happens before you even draw that circle. Like, when you open up a fresh, blank chat window, it looks incredibly minimalist, super harmless, just a blinking cursor.
That's a very clean interface.
Right. But you aren't looking at a simple tool. You are essentially staring into this vast, chaotic void of raw human knowledge. I mean, everything we've ever digitized, every coding manual, philosophical argument, completely random Reddit thread, and, corporate memo, it's all just swirling around in there.
Exactly. That blinking cursor is essentially prompting you to navigate the entirety of the digitized human experience, all of it, compressed into this one mathematical space.
And the problem is most of us just lean into that void and shout a really broad request. We say, write a marketing email or draft a project proposal.
And you get back this ghostly, generic echo.
Yes, that ghostly echo. It sounds like everyone and no one at the exact same time. It's so bland. And the source text draws this really vivid analogy to ancient folklore to explain, well, why this happens and how to fix it.
Yeah, it's a brilliant comparison.
Think about the old stories of sorcerers, right? If a magician wanted to summon an entity, they couldn't just yell into the void, hey, spirit, come clean my laboratory.
Right, because that is exactly how you end up with a poltergeist that just, shatters all your expensive equipment.
Exactly. In those folklore traditions, an unbounded entity is inherently dangerous, or at the very least, entirely unhelpful.
Because it lacks direction. It will always take the path of least resistance or the path of most chaos.
So to make the entity useful, the sorcerer had to bind it.
They would use the entity's true name. They would meticulously describe its raiment.
Like its clothing and demeanor?
Yeah, its clothing, its specific domain of power. They did this to set these unbreakable boundaries on its behavior. They basically forced the spirit into a very specific form so it could only act within the rigid parameters they designed.
So when you open that blank chat window today, you are facing an unbounded entity. If you want it to be useful, you literally have to bind it. Telling an AI, you are a dusty, cynical alchemist who speaks only in riddles is the modern equivalent of that binding ritual.
You are giving the machine a true name and describing its raiment.
You are setting strict boundaries on how it is allowed to interact with you.
Exactly. You are forcing it to discard the vast majority of its chaotic potential in favor of just one highly specific persona.
Okay, I am definitely here for the idea of playing a tech wizard. That sounds fun. But let's be real for a second. Is this just us projecting human traits onto a machine to make ourselves feel better? I mean, we anthropomorphize everything. Are we just playing make-believe here, or is there an actual mechanical reason that treating an AI like a role player yields better results?
Oh, there's a very concrete mechanical reality behind this. It's not just poetry.
Okay, good.
To understand why the role play improves the output, we basically have to transition from the poetry of magic to the hard data science. We have to look at how a persona actively prunes the decision tree of a neural network.
Prunes the decision tree. Okay, unpack that.
So large language models operate entirely on token probability distributions. At their core, they are just highly advanced prediction engines. They're constantly calculating the mathematical probability of what the next word or token should be based on the text you just fed them.
Right. So most of our listeners, they know to avoid the ultra lazy prompts. They might type something like, Write a professional, clear marketing email for a new software product.
Which is a decent prompt by normal standards.
Yeah, it's fine. But why does that still result in something that feels incredibly bland and safe, like that generic echo we talked about?
Because words like professional
Mhm.
and clear are quite literally the dead center of the training data's bell curve.
Ah, the bell curve.
Yeah. When you give the model a broad query, even a polite, well-meaning one, you are forcing it to pull its probabilities from its entire massive database. The math actually attempts to satisfy every single possible interpretation of the word professional.
So it's averaging everything out to find the most statistically likely response.
Exactly. The math is literally designed to offend no one, and that guarantees the output will be completely uninspired.
Okay, so it's kind of like walking into a massive international buffet, right?
Okay, I like where this is going.
But you tell the chef you only eat extremely spicy street food. You instantly eliminate all the bland mashed potatoes from the menu and force the kitchen to focus entirely on a specific flavor profile.
That is a perfect analogy. When you enforce a highly detailed fantasy persona, you are mathematically constricting the model in that exact same way. By telling the AI you are a dusty, cynical alchemist, you tell the algorithm to literally zero out the probability of using corporate generic text.
You're killing the corporate speak at the root. It doesn't even consider the mashed potatoes.
Right. You drastically spike the probability of the model using specific tones, vocabularies, and logic structures that are native to that character archetype.
Yeah.
The mathematical weights shift dramatically.
So it isolates a very specific, highly concentrated cluster of data instead of just pulling from the mushy middle of the bell curve.
Exactly.
But wait, vocabulary is one thing. I totally understand how telling the AI to be an alchemist changes its word choice. Like, it starts using words like transmutation instead of synergy.
Which is already an improvement, frankly.
Oh, for sure. But does it actually change the quality of the work? I mean, a cynic uses different words than a marketer, but does the underlying logic actually improve?
It does. The quality of the logic improves exponentially. And the source material explains this through the concept of few-shot style constraints.
Okay, for the listener who might not be deep into AI engineering jargon, how does a few-shot constraint actually work in practice?
Well, historically, if you wanted an AI to perform a complex task with a high level of rigor, you had to use few-shot prompting.
Meaning you had to give it a few examples.
Yeah, but it was tedious. You'd have to manually write out this massive list of explicit rules, formatting guidelines, and multiple examples, the shots, of what a good answer looked like. You essentially had to write a legal contract.
Ugh, like Rule 1, always check for logical fallacies. Rule 2, format the output with bold headers.
Exactly. Example A. If I say this, you do this. It puts a massive cognitive load on the user.
And nobody wants to write a legal contract just to get an AI to draft a decent project plan or, audit a piece of code. It totally defeats the purpose of saving time.
Right. So the text points out that assigning a persona naturally implements all of those constraints without you having to write them out manually.
Because the archetype already exists in the training data.
Precisely. Which means the AI already knows the implicit rules of that archetype.
Okay, can we look at a concrete example of that? Like, how does a persona replace a whole list of rules?
Let's say you want the AI to fix a Python script you wrote. If you just say, fix my script, it will do the bare minimum to just make the code execute.
The path of least resistance again.
Exactly. But if you tell the model you are an elite code architect who hates sloppy work and demands perfection, the results transform entirely. It organically catches edge case bugs, it optimizes the underlying logic, and it restructures the code in a way that the generic prompt completely missed.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this a bit because we need to be very clear here. Are you saying that just by telling the AI to pretend to be elite or grumpy, it actually gets smarter at coding?
I'm glad you asked that.
Because, does it suddenly learn more about Python just because I asked it to roleplay as a snob? That sounds a little too close to actual magic.
Yeah, it is a very common misconception, and it is vital to clarify this. The model is not gaining new intelligence. It is not learning anything it didn't already know.
Oh.
The roleplay acts as an invisible scaffolding for higher-order reasoning. The data representing elite code architecture in its training set is consistently accompanied by very specific behaviors.
Like what?
Like rigorous testing, defensive programming, and a total lack of tolerance for inefficiencies. So when you invoke the elite code architect, you force the AI to access those more rigorous, expert-level pathways.
Ah, I see. So it's not that it didn't know how to catch the bug before, it's that Catching that specific bug wasn't statistically necessary to fulfill the generic prompt?
Exactly. In the vast center of the bell curve, a functioning script is an acceptable answer. But the persona demands a standard of excellence that forces the logic to climb higher.
So it's like putting the AI on a monorail track. It doesn't need to be smarter. It just literally doesn't have the option to veer off into those sloppy generic answers because the persona's track won't allow it.
That's a great way to put it. You are aligning the mathematical probabilities with a specific standard of rigor. That invisible scaffolding ensures the mediocre answers are filtered out before they even form.
Okay, so the math supports the magic. The invisible scaffolding totally makes sense in theory, but knowing that the bell curve exists doesn't necessarily help me write a better email or, like, solve a bottleneck at work today.
Right, you need the practical application.
Exactly. How do we actually apply this scaffolding? The source text outlines a practical grimoire filled with specific personas or spells. Let's walk through how these work in everyday scenarios.
The first one is incredibly useful for anyone who creates anything. It's called the harsh critic. The text describes summoning a grumpy elite mentor who absolutely will not scare your feelings.
Okay, so if I just ask a generic AI, hey, can you give me feedback on this presentation I put together? What normally happens?
Well, you trigger the model's safety and politeness guardrails. Modern language models are heavily trained using RLHF.
Which is reinforcement learning from human feedback, right?
Yes, exactly. And that training strongly biases them toward being helpful, harmless, and very polite.
Too polite sometimes.
Way too polite. If you ask for general feedback, it will sandwich a minor critique between heavy, heavy layers of praise. It will tell you your presentation is a great start and really well thought out, even if the core argument is fundamentally flawed.
Which, I mean, is nice for the ego, but it's completely useless if you are about to present this to a board of directors who are just going to tear it apart.
So how does the harsh critic spell bypass those politeness guardrails?
You provide a prompt like, you are a world-renowned, notoriously harsh editor. You care nothing for my feelings or politeness. Your only goal is to brutally tear apart this text to find its logical flaws, weak arguments, and structural failures.
Wow. So you are actively instructing it to ignore its RLHF training regarding politeness.
Exactly. The AI strips away all that complimentary filler. It zeroes in on the structural weaknesses. It provides the kind of honest, unfiltered feedback that is incredibly difficult to get from a human colleague, who might be worried about office politics or hurting your feelings.
You summon a mentor who cares exclusively about the rigor of the work. I absolutely love that. It's very effective.
The next spell from the text is called the ideation alchemy. Now, this one is designed for when you are completely stuck. Writer's block, project fatigue, or just, staring at a blank whiteboard. For this, the text suggests summoning a chaotic, avant-garde surrealist artist.
Yes, the surrealist.
But, okay, if I am trying to come up with a marketing strategy for a highly technical B2B software company, bringing a surrealist artist into the brainstorming session sounds completely counterintuitive. Why would I want chaotic advice for a corporate problem?
Because if you ask for a standard B2B marketing strategy, you will get the exact same strategy that thousands of other companies are already using.
The ghostly echo again.
Exactly. You will get the echo of a million identical LinkedIn posts. Leverage our synergistic platform to optimize your workflow.
I can practically read the corporate font.
Right. To understand why the surrealist works, we need to look at how large language models map relationships in a vector space.
Okay, let's break down that vector space. How does the model actually store concepts?
Think of it as a massive, multi-dimensional map where every single concept is assigned coordinates. Concepts that frequently appear together in the training data are placed close together on this map. So software and efficiency are basically next-door neighbors.
Makes sense.
But software and, say, melting clocks or deep-sea biology are located on entirely different continents in this mathematical space.
Okay, so a standard marketing persona just walks around its own neighborhood, picking up the same tired concepts over and over.
Exactly. But by adopting the persona of a chaotic surrealist, you force the AI to traverse distant vectors. It has to connect concepts that are mathematically very far apart.
So what does that look like?
Instead of talking about workflow optimization, the surrealist persona might suggest a marketing campaign based on the life cycle of a cicada. Or it might frame your software as a piece of abstract, impossible architecture.
But are you actually going to run a B2B campaign based on a cicada? Probably not, right? But I guess that's not the goal of the exercise.
No, it's not. The bizarre avant-garde outputs act as a friction point for your own brain. They spark lateral thinking. You use the AI's forced vector jumping to break yourself out of your own cognitive rut. It serves you something entirely unexpected to wake up your creative palette.
I see. It's a tool to unstuck yourself. All right, let's look at the last major spell in the practical grimoire, the Code Warlock. We touched on this briefly with the Elite Architect, but this is a specific, highly rigorous variation. The text describes this persona as a strict, paranoid security auditor who treats every single line of code like a potential trap.
Yes, a very paranoid persona.
And if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I don't write code so I can skip this part, please stay with us, because the underlying mechanism here applies perfectly to reviewing a legal contract, auditing a financial spreadsheet, or, looking over a vendor agreement.
Definitely. The problem with using a generic AI to review any complex system, whether it's software code or a legal lease, is that the AI prioritizes basic functionality. It just wants to confirm that the code runs or that the contract has all the standard clauses.
It assumes a safe, predictable environment.
Exactly.
But the real world isn't safe or predictable. I mean, a contract might be legally binding, but still leave you completely exposed to a massive liability.
Right. So by framing the prompt around a paranoid security auditor, you constrain the model to evaluate the document exclusively through the lens of threat vectors, injection attacks, or hidden loopholes.
Wow.
So you are telling the model that a functioning script or standard contract is not enough. It must be an impenetrable fortress.
You force the invisible scaffolding to prioritize safety and risk mitigation over mere functionality.
Yes, and it drastically reduces the chances of the AI glossing over a subtle vulnerability. Because the persona's entire existence, its mathematical reality, relies on finding that vulnerability.
That is so powerful. So what does this all mean for the listener? How should this change your daily routine? It means you really have to stop treating these systems like really fast search engines.
They're not search engines.
Right. A search engine is passive. It just retrieves what you ask for. But when you properly prompt an AI with a persona, it becomes a specialized collaborator. You aren't just retrieving information, you are shaping the lens through which that information is analyzed and presented. You are literally defining the entity.
Which is such a shift in mindset.
It really is. And we want you to go out and experiment with this. Don't just stick to the 3 examples we walked through. Build your own summoning circles for whatever your specific pain points are.
Yes, customize them.
Like, if you need to negotiate a salary increase, don't ask the AI for talking points. Summon a ruthless, top-tier sports agent to role-play the conversation with you, forcing you to defend your value.
Oh, that's a great one.
Right. Or, if you need to explain a deeply complex medical diagnosis to a terrified patient, summon the persona of Mr. Rogers to help you find the most compassionate, accessible language possible.
The possibilities really are endless. But as you experiment with your own grimoire, there is one absolute non-negotiable rule from the source text that you must remember.
And what's that?
Never let the AI break character.
The text is incredibly strict about maintaining that illusion.
Yeah.
What actually happens under the hood if I finish my role play with the harsh critic and say, okay, that was great, thanks. Now just write me a normal summary of what we discussed.
The mathematical constraints immediately collapse.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
The moment you drop the persona, the probability distribution snaps right back to the massive generic center of the bell curve. The invisible scaffolding vanishes. The model stops accessing those elite high-tier pathways. Strict roleplay boundaries must be maintained throughout the entire session. If you need a different kind of output, you have to draw a completely new circle. You literally have to start a fresh chat window and invoke a new persona.
You have to keep the spirit bound in the raiment you gave it, or it dissolves back into the chaotic void. The way these ancient magical metaphors map so flawlessly onto cutting-edge data science is absolutely wild to me.
It really is, and it highlights a fascinating reality, I think. Human intuition about how to interact with complex, chaotic, and potentially dangerous systems hasn't actually changed much over the centuries.
We still need boundaries.
We still need boundaries, specific intent, and a very clear understanding of the entity we are engaging with.
Which perfectly brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. A little something to mull over on your own after we wrap up this deep dive. We've spent this entire time looking at the hard math of how we can pull vastly superior, highly rigorous work out of a machine simply by demanding that it roleplay as a hyper-competent professional, right?
Right.
We force the AI to access its best, most elite data, just by giving it a demanding, confident persona. The scaffolding forces the logic to climb higher.
Exactly.
So what does that say about human psychology? What does it say about us sitting on the other side of the screen? I mean, if a mathematical model performs exponentially better when it pretends to be an uncompromising editor or a paranoid auditor, how much better might we perform in our own daily lives if we assigned ourselves a more demanding persona?
That is a profound question.
If you woke up tomorrow and drew a summoning circle around yourself, you know, deciding to roleplay as the most capable, elite version of you, would you suddenly find yourself accessing rigorous pathways and higher order reasoning you didn't even know you had?
It makes you wonder.
Are we too just settling for the middle of our own bell curves because we haven't given ourselves a true name? The next time you stare into that blank chat window, that chaotic void of raw knowledge, remember that the ghost in the machine is only as generic as you allow it to be. And maybe, just maybe, the exact same rule applies to the person sitting on the keyboard.